shooting down in the woods. He wouldn't leave it even if he could. 'Cause life is good, yeah!
Hickok45, your internet shooting companion, coming to you from the beautiful hills of Middle Tennessee. Tennessee, the home of Alvin York, Dolly Parton, all the usuals, huh? Well, also there are some others, many others, fairly well-known folks from Tennessee, the great state of Tennessee, like Aretha Franklin. Who else? Who was the gal on Moonlighting? Pretty hot. Sybil Shepherd, that's right. She's from Tennessee, or from, Memphis, as was, I believe, Aretha Franklin. Lots of people from this area. Rock stars, country music stars, weirdos like myself. Well, actually, I'm not from Tennessee. I started to say weirdos like myself, so I'm a transplanted Tennessean. But from Kentucky. That's why I make fun of Kentuckians. I have a license. So anyway, I was in Kentucky today, by the way. I made a little trip up to the Louisville gun show, which reminds me, Jeff Foxworthy's missing out on a joke, I guess. I better send him some material. There must be a gun nut or a redneck or some kind of joke. If you go to a gun show twice in one weekend, or two different gun shows in one weekend, you must qualify for something. Because I went to the Murfreesboro, Tennessee gun show Saturday, and then today went to Louisville to the big gun day up there. So yes, I confess, I am a gunaholic. There's no way around it, right? Wow. Originally, I was planning on going to Louisville yesterday. That was going to be my big gun show trip for the weekend, and decided not to go. Talked myself out of the long drive. It's about 3 hours to Louisville from my house, the compound here. And I'll go to Murfreesboro. So did it. And I'll be darned. The lure of all those classic military rifles and pistols and Old West, revolvers and lever guns and all that is always there, and there are always lots of them at the Louisville Gun Day. So I guess I never really got it out of my mind totally what I had missed yesterday by going to the Murfreesboro, Tennessee gun show. Anyway, I woke up early, about 4 o'clock, which is not unusual for me, but this morning, you know what? I could be at the Louisville gun show by the time they open. And you have to roll up there pretty early from down my way, because you lose an hour going to Louisville. It's they're in the Eastern time zone. I'm in the Central time zone. So you got to get on out of town if you're going to be up there when it opens. So you're talking about 4 hours, right? Anyway, I did it. And, what can I say? I confess. It's what I do. Hang out at gun shows, always have. I just love to walk through and enjoy the firearms, enjoy the ambiance. Didn't really buy too much, a holster and a couple of things, but smaller things. Saw several things that, oh boy, was tempted to walk out with, but I behaved myself pretty well, I have to say. I really did. Saw some of you there. That was great, as I did yesterday in Murfreesboro, and I always enjoy that. In fact, I say one of you, I think the fellow who makes the cigar ashtrays, I guess you call them, out of wood, is a viewer too. The fellow set up with him was very familiar with the videos and looked me up, and he was set up with this guy from Glasgow who makes these cigar ashtrays, and he's a cigar smoker and all that. Both of them are, and he brought me one as a complimentary gift, which was really, really nice. So I don't know. I think the guy who makes them is Steve Chaplin. Met him, but I'm not sure he watches gun videos. Maybe he does. But out of Glasgow, so nice guys, and met a lot of people there that have nothing better to do than to watch shooting videos on YouTube. what is the world coming to? There's a lot of weirdos on this planet, aren't there? Some of them make videos, some of them watch videos, and they're all pretty strange, huh? Well, what have we been up to? Well, speaking of Tennessee and Kentucky, I was thinking driving up this morning, what an interesting area that I live in, and I forget. And you too, probably, if you just think about it. Wherever you grow up or wherever you happen to live, you take for granted a lot of the attractions, don't you? We all do that. And I just forget that, for someone who's living in California, maybe he's never been out of the state, or someone in Germany or wherever, Czech Republic, I hear from all of you, that might even be familiar with some of the places around here. And I take them for granted. Been to lots of them, but some I've not. But as I was driving this morning, and I went up through Bowling Green, Kentucky, of course, up 65, and started seeing the signs for the distilleries, the bourbon distilleries. Kentucky's famous for bourbon and fast women and fast horses, right? Bluegrass and horse racing and all that. And I go by the Patton Museum up there, Fort Knox. Where all the gold is hidden away, supposedly there at Fort Knox. I've driven by that several times, of course, and seen the building. I haven't seen the gold, but at Fort Knox. And gosh, what else I was thinking about? Louisville, of course, the gun show they have there kind of at the fairgrounds is very close, right there at Churchill Downs, where the Kentucky Derby is run. And on all that, I went by the area where Abe Lincoln was supposedly born, and just different thing. Mammoth Cave, it's right up the road from me, about an hour, and I've been through that, not for a long time. You might have heard of Mammoth Cave. I don't know. You just forget that all this is right here, just within a couple hours. And just like in Tennessee, I could get up one morning and make a little drive and go down through, visit the Battle of Shiloh, Chickamauga, in Chattanooga, and Georgia, North Georgia there on the line, and come back up through the Battle of Franklin Stones River. If you're a Civil War buff, you know what I'm talking about, and all that. And of course, in Tennessee, I always could stop by the Jack Daniel's distillery. I've been through it a couple of times, by the way. And I could also get up in the morning and be over in the Smoky Mountains and have lunch in Gatlinburg. So all these places are not that far away from me, and I've been to about all of them. So, but you take for granted where you live. I guess we all do that. And of course, Nashville, most people are aware of, if nothing else, the home of country music, and not just country, but a lot of music. And where a lot of people, we can't claim as Tennesseans necessarily. Whether it's Johnny Cash or whoever, Chris Christopherson, you could name 1,000 of them, George Jones, Hank Williams, couldn't think of that name, right? Hank Williams Jr. A lot of these people were born in other states, but then they come here to do their music, and many of them live here and still live here, or did live here for a great long time, and many of them I have actually seen around town. And actually, I have taught a lot of their children. Give you a little clue there, too, that I couldn't talk about while I was doing it. But anyway, it's an interesting area of the country in which to live, and I'm still hanging out here. So what we're going to talk about today, I was just in the mood, believe it or not, I've been on the road all day. I don't know why I'm in the mood. Maybe it's because I've been hanging out in gun shops or gun shows all weekend, and so I'm more in the mood to talk about firearms, you reckon? That's part of it? Don't know, but we'll talk about some firearms and some other stupid things. How's that? Speaking of the Louisville gun show, Louisville has about 3 or 4 a year of the big ones. I think they're called the Gun Day. There's a little bit different focus on some of them. Some of them have a military show in connection with it, like today, this weekend. Others don't. But they're usually big shows for this part of the country. Nothing like Tulsa. There's some huge ones out west. I know. I'd love to go out there to one of those here one of these days, and probably will. But now that it might be easier to get away for things like that, But if you've never been to a big gun show, now the gun show that occurs in your town, at the fairgrounds or some arena that's a nice show, and you can run into a few old guns, but mostly new guns. Those are, of course, great. You can find ammo, and a lot of your local dealers are set up there, and they're all wonderful. But at a show, once you get to that next level, the next size show, like this one in Louisville, it takes a pretty big arena for it, and it like a convention center type arena. I mean, you can walk through it in a couple hours, 3 hours, whatever. It's not like some of the huge shows that take 2 days to go through out west, but you get to a level where it's just bigger, and there are a lot of actual guns being displayed. It's an actual show. Now it's everything. It's lots of guns for sale, but it's also guns on display, mini guns, mini, M-A-N-Y, not M-I-N-I, mini guns that are on display, like old Western firearms or .08 Lugers, all that, by the hundreds maybe. Really, I would guess there were at least 100 .08, Luger, 9mm or whatever caliber. Some of them were in 7.62 caliber probably, but I would say there were 100 of them at that show, maybe 200. So compare that with maybe your local show. That gives you an idea where you might walk through and not even see one, or it might be one or two. And same for Colt single actions, first generation ones, second generations. There's hundreds literally of those there. If you have a thick enough wallet, let me put it this way, you could go into that show and come out with an original Henry rifle. I'm talking an 1860 Henry rifle, not the company that started making them, in recent years called Henry. I'm talking the original Henry 44 rimfire rifle. Now, the couple of them I looked at, just happened to look at the price tags on a couple there near the end of the show. One was $28,000 something, and the other one was $32,000. So, like I say, you would need a fat wallet. You could come out with a like new World War I, 1911, easily. Not a problem. Again, you'd better have some cash. Single action Army Colt that is like new almost, or like new. It's there. I mean, it's going to be there. Any firearm that you would have an interest in. Some of them are just on display, but many are for sale. And lots of them don't even have the prices marked, but they are for sale. That tells you, don't ask unless you can afford it, but lots of interesting fire. I like to go to that show because I'm not, necessarily looking for a high dollar firearm, but there's something really cool about just seeing them. Some of you maybe live out away from the big city, which is kind of lucky in a way, right? You may not have even seen a real Henry rifle in the flesh, in the brass, in the steel. You may have just seen pictures of them, but have never actually been in presence of one. Let's put it that way. A Henry rifle made in 1860, fully functional. There it is. Some of those kinds of firearms. Or a variety of Civil War firearms in all sorts of conditions. Some take them out and fire; they look like they were hardly issued. That sort of thing. It's just neat to see that stuff. I enjoy that, as I also enjoy going through and seeing the modern firearms and ammo and whatever else might be on display there. It's also interesting, to be honest, to see the price tags on those things and just see what what somebody's charging for them and what the value, at least ballpark value, seems to be for them. I mean, some of you may not, well, you should be. If you've been around firearms long, that stuff's available. You can go on Gun Broker and, that stuff is around. But, like I say, if you have the money, or you just really badly want something like that, that might be your bass boat. If you don't care about fishing, you don't care about $40,000 or $50,000 vehicles, you're saving up for an original Colt percussion 1851 Navy in really good shape. or something like that, or a Henry rifle. I don't know. You're going to spend $20,000 on something like that. In a lot of ways, I would rather spend $20,000 on I don't know, a Henry rifle, or actually I'd rather have something that I could find ammo for just to fire it once in a while. I think I'd rather spend it on probably a cartridge gun, but maybe a Civil War rifle, an original in really good shape. I'd almost rather have that than a Class 3 select fire something, Uzi, you name it. Now, John would not agree. He would rather have the select fire, sub gun or whatever. And if it comes right down to it, I might make that decision myself. But those things attract me, oh man, just as much. I mean, you talk about history. Wow. Even the replica of a fine firearm like that, it just takes you back into time, and it's just wonderful. And in many cases, that's what you want. If you're going to fire it much, you want to enjoy it. You want a replica. Just get a really good quality replica. And those suckers are, sometimes almost as expensive as the originals, depending on what the firearm is. But anyway, it's interesting to go to a show like that and see all that kind of thing. It really is. I bought a couple of cartridges, which I never have done that actually. Mainly for some upcoming videos. Thought it might be useful. Some original cartridges going back into the 1800s. There are people who collect those things, and they come set up at shows like that too, and buy and sell, trade. So you'll maybe see a little bit of that in the video. I paid $40. It's actually marked $45, but I paid $40 because I bought 3 or 4 for a cartridge. You think ammo is expensive at your local gun shop? I paid $40 for one cartridge, and actually you'll see that one pretty soon. Well, nope, maybe take that back. I forget. Maybe that one not quite so soon. You'll see some other, $15 cartridges before too long, I think. So anyway, I had a big weekend. Enjoyed the gun shows, and especially meeting you guys. So. That was wonderful. Met one viewer, really active poster on the channel, Pullian77. I forget his exact username, at the Louisville show, and that was really good. Talked to him a while. We sat down and had a soft drink, and that was cool. But anyway, always enjoy meeting the viewers, and actually yesterday and today, probably actually chatted with 5 or 6 more than I normally do. Just I don't know, just did. Just worked out. So anyway, had fun. Now on to more serious matters, as in firearms. See if you can tell me what this is. Got it yet? Let me cock it again. You don't know? You can't tell? What is wrong with you people? Are you getting more stupider or something, like me? Well, let's see. There really probably is not a hint. Let me put it on half cock. Break it down. It's some kind of top break revolver. Yeah, okay. For some of you, close it up immediately. Some form of Smith & Wesson probably comes to mind. Schofield, Model 3. Whatever, and you'd be very warm on that, because that's what it is pretty much. It's a new Model 3, but it's a replica of a Model 3 Smith & Wesson. And I probably shouldn't let the cat out of the bag. It is something that you have not really seen at the compound, and as with other firearms, I know it's fairly random what we have and what we end up doing videos with, it seems. Now, not totally random. There are certain firearms I really seek. I go after, at least to some extent, if it's something that I have not done for a long time or ever, and it's easy to get a hold of one or something. But it's also very random. It depends on what people offer, and just my interests, especially. what some of the manufacturers that I get T&E guns from are producing, that sort of thing. And again, I'd really just get T&E guns from 5 or 6 manufacturers. I have not sought or contacted a lot of them. A few I have and haven't heard back, and there's 1 or 2 I've contacted a couple or 3 times, like Smith & Wesson and some others, and they're obviously not interested. But so anyway, it's not a big deal. A lot of companies just don't do that much, and or they just do it with gun writers. They don't trust YouTube, or as someone pointed out to me, they might be afraid of YouTube because they don't own us, and they don't buy any advertising in my magazine. So now again, as I've discussed at length, we're not in the business of bashing companies, but we try to give an honest appraisal of it too, whereas you don't always get that in a gun rag, do you? They've got thousands and thousands of advertising dollars they have to have to exist, from where no one except the gun companies, right? So we understand the position they are in. I'm glad I'm not in that position, but anyway, yeah, that is one school of thought that they're a little bit wary of having videos on a firearm, because if it goes south, that video does. It depends on whose it is and how many subscribers and viewers they have. And of course, we have a lot of viewers and subscribers, so I have to admire at this point. I have to admire any gun company that's willing to send us a T&E gun, because they are taking a little risk, aren't they? But anyway, I have a new model Smith & Wesson. It's something you haven't seen, as I was saying, on our channel. I had a Schofield about, I don't know, 97, however long ago that is, 97, because that was my one of my 2 pistols when I first shot a cowboy action shooting match. I had an old Colt that was about to fall apart, I recall, and a Schofield, a reproduction. It was a Navy Arms. That was my first match, and for some reason I let that thing go. I think I traded it for a Colt of some sort, or Colt clone, a Uberti clone, and didn't have it but a couple of years, if that long. I just never did like the grip on it. It didn't feel good. Oh man, nothing like a Colt single action. And most of you know what I'm talking about. I'm that way with the Remingtons, and the Remingtons are great guns, built well, both in the percussion, the 58 Remington, I've got one of those, and then also in the later cartridge guns, whatever year that is, the Remington 73, I don't know, 74, but they have the piece under the barrel, and even in the cartridge guns, the new cartridge guns, if you've seen one, they have a distinctive look about them. But the grip and ergonomics of those is just never suited me that well, and even the Schofield, same way. Now this is a new Model 3, came out just a little bit later, and it feels a little bit better to me, and I'm gonna have a hard time sending it back, but with my addiction and everything that I have to firearms. But I tell you, even though you haven't seen a top break revolver here at the compound, top break revolvers have always fascinated me. I want to like them, and there just really aren't that many different models, to choose from. You got H&R, and there's some 22s out there, and a lot of Smith & Wessons from the early days. But whether they have good ergonomics, or if they feel terrible in my hand, whatever it might be, I still have always been impressed or fascinated by that frame that just breaks open. There's just something about that. Even with a shotgun, you may be the same way. It's just cool. I lift up on the sight, and the thing just breaks open totally. And of course, it's easier to load. It's quicker to load. That's one of the advantages of this design, and to eject the cases even. not a big advantage unless you're cavalry. That's one reason Schofield changed the latch on it. He had the latch where it was on the frame instead of the barrel, which made it better for the cavalry if you're on horse to break it open and reload and all that kind of thing. And that's why they went to that. It's all the Model 3, but they went to that for a couple of years or whatever the time span was there in the mid 1870s, and then they went back to the original latch system where it's on the barrel. And to tell you the truth, since I'm not on horseback, I think I just soon have the standard Model 3 latch on these, because I recall with my Schofield breaking that thing open even when I didn't mean to. You get your thumb up there and it was really easy, even in your holster or pulling it out of the holster or just whatever. You got to be careful with it, be aware of it. In some ways I think I like this better. But it's a classic. It's another classic revolver. I've really been remiss over the years. I've neglected it. The Smith & Wesson, the Model 3s, they were prolific. There were lots of them in the West. Now, many of them were in Russia, because one of the things that helped Colt, to tell you the truth, was right away when Smith & Wesson started making these big bore cartridge revolvers, 44 breakdown top breaks. They got this huge contract from Russia for, what was it, 150,000 of them or something, or 200. It was a massive number for the times to make for them, for the Russian army. And so they were pretty well preoccupied. They were making other firearms too, but that took a lot of their resources to make those revolvers for Russia. It was very lucrative. During the 1870s, they were busy with that while Colt was establishing the civilian market, in this country. And so it was great for them, but then again, it cost them, I think, a lot of the market in this part of the world. But anyway, they're really neat. They're really neat. We'll do a video with this thing pretty soon. Got it from Taylor's and Company, and appreciate their sending it to me. And speaking of other firearms news, I am sitting here looking at a large container filled with freshly reloaded 357 Magnum rounds. Guess what they're for? Yes, the Model 92 you saw recently. I had ordered some cast bullets that are round nose flat points, because almost all of my hand loads that I've been loading the last few years, several years. Again, how many times have I told you all that? I mean, the repeats, aren't it? But those rather pointed cast bullets that I used to use in my 38 Super, they're 357, 36 caliber diameter, whatever. I tested them and they work in my 357 or 38. So I had thousands of those things left over. So I've been loading for free basically with my 357 rounds, at least as far as the bullet's concerned. The biggest cost of reloading, and they work great. My revolvers, and I've not had a lever action in 357. So having a flat-pointed bullet has not ever been an issue for me. So that's one reason I was firing in the first video with this gun, some of the factory loads and some factory 38 specials and different things, because they had flat noses on them. But I got these bullets in, got a couple thousand of them in, and have loaded, close to 1,000. So nice. What can I say? I can go out and shoot that thing all I want and enjoy it. Also, regarding firearms, I know most of you, if not all of you, have seen some of the recent videos where we have that cool P08 Luger out and shooting it, showing it, taking it apart. So I tell you, as some of you have pointed out very accurately, I am a lucky stiff, no doubt about it. And that, I think, is one sign of, what shall I say, not maturity. I can't I can't presume to be mature, but maybe of enlightenment. Ooh, what a stretch. I don't know. But it is, let's just say it's a good thing if you realize when you're lucky, you know, when you're aware of it, and you can savor it. A lot of people don't. A lot of people always see that glass half empty, don't they, no matter what's going on. But yeah, I am lucky. I've had a lot of interesting firearms around, and that's fun. Partly because you guys watch the videos, so it continues to grow, and we get offers to borrow different firearms, and that's great. It works out for all of us. We're kind of the channel, no pun intended. We can channel these things through to you guys, and bad thing about that is you're stuck with my weird presentations of them, but you get to see some firearms up close. John does a great job with the camera. Hopefully I give you enough information about them. Don't fumble with them too much, and I get to enjoy them, so we all win. It's a win-win-win-win situation, really. Helps everybody, and I think the owners of some of the firearms enjoy seeing them. They enjoy sharing them, with so many people. So it all works out, and we're really careful with them. Wow, that is a little tricky. We had that Luger the same time we had the P38, and both of them have some real sentimental value, as you'll see when you see the P38 video too. It's very similar to the story on the Luger, just coincidentally. And so, boy, when I have those, I don't like to hang on to them any longer than necessary. So we go ahead and are about, doing whatever videos we want to do with them. So you may not see as many videos, whereas with some firearms, if I own them, we'll, just get an idea some one day. We haven't done a close-up with this gun, or we haven't done maybe a woods walk with it, and we'll do a little more with it. So it just depends on the firearm. But you'll see some more of the P08, the Luger. We did another video with it. One I kind of like, a comparison video, and that I thought was appropriate, and John did too. And you'll see the P38, of course, which is a good shooter, by the way. And the P38's a cool gun. If you want a piece of history plus a shooter, very interesting. That firearm, as you'll see in the video, if you're familiar with the Beretta 92 and some other firearms, that firearm it's like the prototype. If you didn't know better, you'd think that was just an early prototype of the Beretta 92, and maybe some even earlier Beretta models that I'm not as familiar with. But with the lockup system and the bolt, just everything about it, it really does. You take them apart, look at them side by side. So that gun is pretty innovative, and it's a good one. I enjoyed shooting it and showing it. Pretty cool. And again, on the subject of lucky, being a lucky guy, I was thinking also recently, as I was out on a ride on my Harley. It was a beautiful afternoon, just gorgeous. These fall days, even though it's early fall, where the humidity is down here. It has been down somewhat in the last week in Tennessee. Not so bad and not so hot. A beautiful sunny day. I've been on a few rides recently, short rides or just into town, an hour ride, maybe round trip, that kind of thing. And just that, man, this is as good as it gets. Blue sky, big cumulus clouds, riding along a beautiful 2-lane road through the countryside of Tennessee, on my Harley, and just enjoying the wind and just the weather, the dry weather, and the scenery. Just enjoying the ride, thinking, man, this is it. And same with bush hog. I was out on the tractor, had it in the shop for a couple of weeks, got it back. So did some mowing around the compound. Same kind of thing, beautiful day, just out, mowing around on the compound through the woods and the trees, and thinking, man, seeing the squirrels and the deer and just all the hickory nuts and walnuts, and just thinking, man, this is it. I love the fall. It's my favorite season of the year. And yeah, I am lucky. You're right. And then come back to the house and pick up a firearm of my choice, take a few shots. Doesn't get a lot better. So yep, as I've observed before, life really is pretty good, and I'm aware of it. And it's not perfect, and been just like you, lots of imperfect times, right? Yep, I got graves to visit, several of them, parents, brother. We all have those stories and those times in life. You haven't, you will, but by and large, the good outweighs the bad, the positive outweighs the negative. And man, when you get out in nature, you're reminded of that, how good it is to be alive and healthy, at least physically. I can't claim mental health, but I can at least claim physical health. And oh man, in the fall, you just can't help but think about it. Just a beautiful time of the year. A great time to be out. Great time to have a firearm in your hand with some cool targets handy, right? It just doesn't get any better. Does not get much better. I have a little confession to make. I watched the entire season 3 of Walking Dead. I guess it was about a week ago. I missed season 3. I don't know. I missed the first few segments of it, so I just didn't watch it. And John had bought it. It came out recently. And I think season 4 is coming out here, is going to start up in October. So we wanted to catch it before season 4 begins, so I can get into season 4 and just, watching it weekly and stay up with it and record it, DVR it. But I watched it, and I hadn't seen it for a long time. And I understand why so many people, want to talk about that show. It really is well done, isn't it? I mean, it's an interesting show. If you're a shooter, if you're a guy especially, it's just an interesting show. It's one of those zombie, quote unquote, series or movies, that's not just totally stupid. It actually has some interesting characters and some good acting, good casting, interesting firearms. You'd have to admit that some of that's fairly realistic. If there were a situation like that, everybody wouldn't have maybe their very favorite firearm. You would just have whatever you came up on or could get a hold of or could get ammo for and all that, But I got an overdose of The Walking Dead there for about 3 days, and man, I've never seen so many zombies killed. That's the only thing that still gets me. They really don't have to be this graphic as they are. You almost don't want to be eating, right, when you're watching some of those. There's so many zombies killed and slashed and guts falling out and all that, which keeps my wife from watching it, really. She doesn't like that kind of stuff. Otherwise, she would like the show. But by and large, it's pretty good, I'll have to say. Interesting plot line, pretty good writing, So for that kind of thing, not bad. I don't watch a lot of TV series. I watched some of the old stuff. In the morning I record, as I've told you, I think Rifleman or Gunsmoke, some of those, the westerns, the old westerns, Wyatt Earp, different things like that. And then there's only 2 or 3 modern shows that I make it a point to watch and record to watch that I just don't want to miss. Longmire's one, Justified is one, and I'll catch, of course, The Walking Dead this season to make sure I catch it. I usually catch Sons of Anarchy, but that's about it. I'm a movie guy and news guy. I watch the news and then like movies. Like westerns of all things. Can you imagine that? That's another reason a big gun show is just great if you like westerns and you're even vaguely familiar with the old guns. It's a great place to learn too. I see it as an education opportunity, big old gun shows like that, because I'll see a variation of some firearm that I didn't even know existed, which And I try to remind the viewers, you all, of that when I'm doing a video, that no matter what firearm I might have out there, almost any firearm, there are variations of it that I'm probably not even aware of, and a lot of you might not be aware of. So I try not to talk in absolutes, because it's, they almost whatever it is you name, the company Smith & Wesson or Colt or whoever, Winchester, they had a run of it in some other caliber that hardly anybody even remembers. So you really would have to be an encyclopedia to have all that stuff in your head. And some of it's relatively irrelevant information, for one thing. But you do learn a lot. And it's interesting to see some of those firearms. And I'm fascinated. I don't shoot them a lot, but I have some of the percussion revolvers, the black powder percussion. You load from the front, okay? Those are interesting to see in the original firearms. That's another thing that's pretty cool. In fact, I won't say I came close, but I was almost tempted on one of those, an 1851 Navy Colt. That's one of the classic percussion revolvers. That's what Hickok carried. A couple of those, among other things. And I have reproductions of them, some nice ones. They're even Colt and different things. But wow, I mean, there's some lying there, many of them, many here and there, that were made in like 1860, 1862. I saw one that wasn't priced too awfully bad. It was made in 1862 and was probably shootable if you wanted to shoot the thing. And all the parts, the serial numbers were matching on all the parts and everything. It was a little rough, but it was in a price category where, not much more than, let's put it this way, you could buy one of those for the price of a nice AR, okay? And you've got a firearm that was probably used in the Civil War, and you could load it up and fire it, yourself. That's attractive. That's attractive. An actual firearm from the 1860s. And, so anyway, it's neat to see those things, the real deal. And of course, the replicas are excellent. We're so lucky that mostly Italy, but that so many excellent replicas of these firearms are being made, because they are quality. This by and large, now some are better than others maybe. This, I may get fooled, I hope not, but this Model 3 Smith & Wesson, it just feels like quality. I better knock on wood. But it just really does. It feels like it just came off the Smith & Wesson line. And it really does. So we'll see. But the heft of it, it's just solid and feels like a really good piece of machinery. And there's just something interesting again about these old top brakes, the big old hinge, kind of interesting. They don't feel as good as a Colt single action to me, but they're very interesting pieces. So there I go, rambling again. Y'all let me get off onto a side trail, and I can't always get back when I get back into those side trails. I get off into the gravel first, or the blacktop, then the gravel, then the dirt trail, and then I get into the weeds and forget where I was. So anyway, it was probably about firearms, right? That's good enough. I don't know why I thought about this, but speaking about being lost and getting off the road, I don't know, I was thinking driving up to Louisville today about my days. I saw a sign advertising something about getting your CDL, and I guess you all probably didn't know that I have my CDL driver's license, okay? You're thinking, why would Hickok have a CDL? Oh, I know. I bet he's got a tank or something and it's needed for that, right? He's got a Sherman tank he drives around town. Well, I used to drive a bus some, take kids to a sporting event, that sort of thing. If you do that once a year, you've got to have a CDL. And I would do that occasionally. And I actually would take an entire class places, on retreats and different things. And I was just reminded of the responsibility there. We tend to think of firearms being the most dangerous thing out there, and of course it's so silly. More people are hurt other ways. And we all know, the statistics, and we've been using them the last few months, whether it's drowning in swimming pools, sliding and falling in the shower, and how more people are killed in lots of other ways than through accidental, gunshots and that kind of thing. But there's so many areas where we have to be so responsible and so focused and so alert. And as much as I'm around firearms, and always have been, the most, how shall I phrase it? The time when I have had to be the most focused, way beyond handling firearms, was when I was behind the wheel of that big school bus and taking, kids somewhere, whether it's to a tennis match, basketball game, or the entire class somewhere, with maybe 50 of them on there. Yeah, man, I tell you what, you want some responsibility. Some of you all might be able to relate to that. You might have done it before. You want to put yourself in a responsible place, a place that requires responsibility, the epitome of that. Of all the things I've done in my entire life, there is nothing, I remind my colleagues of that, sometimes I think we all got a little too cavalier about that. Yeah, get them, but who's taking the kids to the basketball game today, or whatever's going on. Hey, you get behind the wheel of that bus with 15, 20, 30, or 40 of somebody's most precious little darlings on there. You think about your own kids, man, it doesn't, that is way beyond any other level of responsibility, anything else that I do. I don't know about you, but that was it. And, but anyway, driving a bus, man, did a lot of that here and there, and enjoyed it. Actually, it was kind of neat, and got to know the kids a little bit better too. Taking them to sporting events and that kind of thing, and of course watching some of the sporting events. But nothing more critical. I can think of many times being on even the interstate with a busload of kids, and big trucks coming up beside you, and just being a hairbreadth away from catastrophe with 20 or 30 of somebody else's kids. It doesn't get any more sobering than that. Something to think about if your kids are on a bus very often or ever. Just be aware of that. Be aware. You might want to check into your school or whatever it is, if it's a church bus, whatever it is, and it might be worthwhile to make sure you know who's driving those buses. And I know you got to be a sober person, and no institution is going to have questionable people, driving buses. But boy, from driving yourself, how close have you come to having an accident before? Think about that with a bunch of kids sitting behind you. Yeah. So anyway, it's a little tidbit there. Part of my history that I considered very, very important and very, very serious, to say the least. By the way, here I still am with this recorder that doesn't work properly. I think I've told you all that it won't play back. It plays back in slow motion. Sounds like the end of one of our videos where I'm sounding like an ogre, and so you can't play back. So I can ramble a little bit, and you would think it'd be nice if I could play it back to make sure I haven't said anything too awfully stupid. Can't even do that. Upload it to the computer and it works fine, but I'm not normally near the computer and upload and I'll go through all that just to make sure I didn't sound too dumb. But anyway, just don't you love technology? I've been messing with it since 81, the Apple II, Apple IIe and everything. So I've been in the middle of it all. I'm not necessarily a techie, never was a computer programmer. I just have always found them very useful as tools, even back before most people had them or knew anything about them. So I was in on it early, as I mentioned before, but I still am not a techie. I mess with them enough to keep them working and do what I want to do, and whatever it is with technology, try not to let the tail wag the dog, which happens quite often with computers and that kind of thing. I've been in a lot of situations like that, where the computers, whether they were working or not, just drove the entire program. And quite often it was in the process of the conversion to computers, because I go back through, again, the 80s, 90s. But anyway, don't you love technology? I have looked at this recorder. I think this particular one was about $100, just a little recorder, digital recorder. But all the settings, I've gone through all the settings, just cannot see anything that would have caused that to start happening. How crazy is that? It records just fine, but playback, and I've gone through all the modes, just everything I can imagine, comes back in slow-mo, so can't really play it back. But anyway, it's just more one take audio, I guess. It's kind of what we do. With the videos, we rarely ever edit them, and we most of the time don't even start them over. What will happen, and of course you see some of that in the outtakes that John will post, is at the beginning of a video we'll start over occasionally, but it's after like 5 seconds, or 10 seconds, that kind of thing. I don't know, I'll just get tongue twisted at the beginning or something like that. But once it gets rolling, for really any amount of time at all, beyond 10 seconds, it's extremely rare that we start over, or it's extremely rare, and then that's it, man. Next 20 minutes, 15 minutes, or 30 minutes, that's it. So I'm accustomed to that pressure, I guess, if you want to call it pressure, or that just method of operation. So it's kind of funny. I know when I first started doing these radio shows, I'd talk for 5 or 10 minutes and I'd play it back, and I don't recall, but maybe once or twice actually erasing one and doing it again. But that was like years ago, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago. So anyway, I guess I've gotten accustomed to it, and also accustomed to not really worrying about it too much, because it is what it is. It's just me rambling about different topics, and the fact that it's not edited is just one of the characteristics of it. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Take some of the pressure off, really. Yeah, because man, for me to have to be perfect, that's a tall order, that's for sure. But anyway, technology, isn't it crazy? I mean, as much as I've messed with computers, and you probably too, just weird things happen. What was I doing just yesterday? I know. The last time I uploaded some sound recordings, then they would not play on the computer, which they always play on the computer, of course. Once they're on the computer, they wouldn't play at all. So, you have to download an update of some program to get this to work. Oh, really? Well, how come for the last year I haven't had to do that, or 6 months? Nothing has changed. Oh boy. And then what happens? I'm printing this morning, trying to print something, and print cartridge finally runs out. Bought a fairly new printer. I haven't had it all that long. Nice printer, like it. Works great. Scanner and copier and all that kind of thing. It's a simple one. Typically, I don't like those. My wife bought one, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. I still not sure how to work the darn thing. It's I guess an early model, one of those do-all printer scanners and everything, copiers. This one's just simpler. It's a NV120 or something HP. It's small, kind of streamlined. It just works really well. I've used about all the features and like it. I'll do a review of it. How's that? I'll take it out to the shooting table of the HP NV, whatever. I think it's a 120 or something. But okay, so I recall when I bought it, I haven't had it all that long. I had to load up the ink cartridges, and They were those you get with a printer that aren't really full, whatever they are, a third full or something to get you going. Well, when I bought the printer, I wasn't born yesterday. I picked up two, regular full ink cartridges, one color, one black, and I had them here ready because I knew it would run out before too long. Well, sure enough, can you imagine? It ran out right in the middle of a print project when I was trying to print something. It ran out of ink. Don't you hate it when that happens? I mean, why wouldn't it run out some other time? Here I was trying to print something and it ran out of ink. Pretty funny, huh? It's just like getting mad because your car won't start when you need it. Right when I needed to go somewhere, the darn thing wouldn't start. Well, no kidding. That's how you find out, isn't it? Well, okay, no big deal. I'm Johnny on the spot, Mr. Boy Scout. I walk to the closet, get the print cartridges, the ink cartridges. Very simple to insert, nothing complicated. Rip off the little cellophane, make sure they work and everything. Put them in, print, and wouldn't you know it, prints in color, but it won't print text. It won't print anything black or anything dark. Okay, readjust it, realign, go through the cleaning process on the ink cartridge, everything I can imagine. The self-check, you went online, all this kind of thing. And of course, it's showing that there's ink in the cartridges on my little, software that can detect whether you have ink or not in there and how much. And everything is fine, except it doesn't print black. I have worked and messed with it. And I don't know. I'm going to take the ink cartridge back to Best Buy and get another one, see if that's it. I can't imagine what it is, but if that's not it, take the printer back. But our life has been rather complicated, hasn't it, by all the technology. When you think about it, and many of you maybe haven't even lived in a time when you didn't have all these issues, but those of us who have been around a while, think about probably the first at least 30 years of my life, maybe 35 to 40, but the first 30 years of my life, 30, better number, I guess, none of this was an issue. The most complicated thing you used on a daily basis was, turn on the TV or your car, of course, what else was I going to say? It's an air conditioner, you might have problems with it. But, no computers, no cell phone. I was going to say the telephone, which was not a problem. None of that. But like my cell phone, for example, my smartphone right now, the navigator somehow disappeared. And I've been using that. I don't have a GPS because on the smartphone it's got that. So whenever I need it or want to use that, I just click it on the smartphone, and there it is. It works just as well as any individual or separate GPS unit I've seen. So I just lay it on the dash, and there he goes. The little gal talks to me, tells me what an idiot I am and how I missed a turn or whatever. Wouldn't you love to program in your own comments on those things? Oh, I'd love to do that. But anyway, lo and behold, the other day, I'm going somewhere. I might have needed a little bit of help, so I was going to put the address in. It's not there. It's not there. There's some other. This one was called Navigator. There's the Verizon, whatever it is, Navigator on there. But yes, okay, I tried. I go in that, mess around, and then it finally seems to work. But then there's a fee to subscribe to it or something. Why do I need to do this? I had this other one, I think it was just called Navigator, a little blue icon. It's not there. It's not in the Play Store or whatever you call it, in the App Store. It's not there either. It's not available. I research it further. Maybe it is somewhere, but it's just you go from one thing to the next. Meanwhile, you're trying to live your life and get things done. Like today, for example, we have a video we're going to try to do, and I was doing some stuff for that. Well, I'm distracted by all of these computer issues and things going on. So, it just never ends, does it? Of course, all this stuff is wonderful. The capabilities, the internet. one day they'll probably have a video program up where you can post videos on the internet and people can actually watch them, So I shouldn't complain about technology, but one of these days, I can see myself saying, okay, that's it. I did my 30, 35 years with technology, wrestling with computer issues and all that. Smartphones, printers, the whole 9 yards. I'm going to take a stack of books out onto the porch and just read. Not touch anything that requires a battery or electrical power for maybe 5 years, unless it's a refrigerator or something like that. So anyway, such is life in the modern world. We all have to deal with it. And speaking of firearms, again, I think really firearms and working on cars that a lot of people like to do is in a way, it's kind of an escape from this crazy world of technology, isn't it? Because you can take whatever it is, a Smith & Wesson double action or a 1911, name your firearm, whatever it is. You can see how it works. If there's something wrong with it, you can kind of figure out what the problem is. You might not be able to fix it. You don't have the tools or maybe the expertise because you're afraid you'll mess it up, but it's something tangible. You can take it apart, take the screws out, take the pins out, look at all the individual parts, see how they work, oil them up, clean them up, put them back together, and then take some shots with it. It's very satisfying to be able to do that with a mechanical object. Even especially when you go back to the old steel and wood firearms, I think it's even more rewarding. Maybe it's just me. To take apart a Colt single action, totally take it down totally. Maybe we'll do that on video one day. I don't somehow would have to edit it probably because it's a little bit of a time issue there. But take the thing apart totally. I've done that many times and cleaned it thoroughly, especially when I was shooting black powder through them in matches. And I didn't do it every match because you don't have to do that even with black powder. I just soak them in ballistol and they were fine. But every now and then I'd take them down, every single screw and spring, make sure they were perfect, and put them back together. Everything all spread out, and there they are, back together and working. So there's such a leap there between a computer problem or trying to figure out something going on with your computer, your printer, your smartphone, your stupid little digital recorder, whatever it might be you're having issues with, that sometimes you just can't figure it out. There's no rhyme or reason behind what's going on. It worked yesterday, just like I was saying, the application to play back on my computer. Why did I have to update it? I didn't take anything off. It had been working, and all of a sudden I have to go to the web to get an update. So it's just all that craziness that you can't figure out really. But with a good old piece of metal, you can enjoy it. If you're a shooter, which you probably are, obviously the joy of firing the thing and cleaning it, maybe even loading ammunition for it. You got all that, and then you got that piece of hardware that is usually a very interesting, maybe ingenious piece of engineering. But yeah, you can take it apart, get your screwdrivers out, your punches and everything, and you can figure it out. You can see how it works. You can actually see how it operates. You can even imagine maybe having been able to invent something like that if you hadn't been such a dummy, right? We all could have been John Browning if we just weren't such dummies. But really, we could take any one of his firearms and look at the bolt and the design. As ingenious as he was, we can look at it and figure it out. We can, wow, that's cool. Yeah, why didn't I think of that? I see how that works. That's pretty clever. Way to go, John. So we didn't figure it out, but at least we can understand it. We can fathom it. We can see the parts, the metal parts, and how they work together and everything. So unlike the world of technology. But anyway, I think there I go rambling again. But that's one of the appeals, I think, especially for guys and some gals too, but particularly for guys. We are fascinated with machinery more so probably, and messing with it, taking it apart, cleaning it up, oiling it, and then getting it back in action. And some of you may work on vehicles more than I do, and you get that same satisfaction. I can do some of the basic things, but there's probably someone out there who can actually take an engine apart and rebuild it, put it back together, and you get that same satisfaction. And of course, that's harder than taking a gun apart and putting it back together generally. But what a world we live in, and fortunately, we can appreciate both sides of it, the old and the new, if we survive the new, without pulling our hair out, right? So anyway, wasn't that an ingenious discussion? Well, speaking of genius, I don't know, just some things that come to me, and kind of firearms related. I guess I've rambled too long here again. Tend to do that. Well, let me talk about something that might actually be a little useful, I don't know, regarding firearms and our selections of firearms. I really could, I guess, talk about firearms choices and our selecting firearms every time I do this, and in videos periodically. So much of what we're all about, really, as shooters, is firearms selection, firearms choice, really. When you think about it, an enormous percentage of questions I get, it's about firearms choice, and a lot of the videos deal with that to some extent. All of them in a lot of ways, helping hopefully people, make decisions about firearms they might want or might think would be a good carry firearm, and that sort of thing. If I were more into hunting, then people would learn more about maybe which rifle was better for hunting certain game even, but I'm not as knowledgeable in that area, so I don't really get into that much. But firearms show, one thing I think about, and maybe talk to John about, or maybe I've talked about it even, I don't know, but again, one of the things we deal with as especially people who carry, if you have a carry permit, or you're thinking of carrying, or maybe even just home defense, if you have a firearm in the home, a pistol especially, I'm thinking of some kind of handgun for defensive purposes. A lot of the what's the word? A lot of the indecision and the various influences that are out there regarding choosing a firearm, particularly for defensive purposes. A lot of it results from our desire for a gun we like, for a handgun we like. Okay, we like to work on, we like to shoot, versus something that might be smarter to carry, isn't it? So, and I think it helps people. Let me get to the bottom line here right away before I ramble too far, but I think it helps us if we can separate, because we all deal with it. Experienced shooters and new shooters and everybody. If we can separate in our head and realize what we're doing, just separate guns that, say, you could take a yellow pad, make 2 columns, and on the left side, just write down the 4 or 5 handguns that for a fact, whether you like them or not, you just know it'd be a good carry gun for you probably, or anybody. It'd be a good defensive pistol. Forget everything you know about it, not everything, but forget what it looks like, whether you really like it, whether it's pretty, what it's made of, but list 4 or 5 handguns that would be good carry guns and would be great defensive guns for you. You'd feel comfortable with those protecting your life or your family. Okay, regardless what they look like or anything else, caliber, or just whatever you think, just list them. And then on the right hand column, list your favorite handguns, the guns that you enjoy taking to the range, the cool guns, the ones that have history. Maybe there's sentimental value associated with based on your family or something. The firearms that you just like, firearms you want to like, the firearms that people just can't help but like. They're just gorgeous. Maybe they shoot well. They've got a good reputation. You know, maybe they're heavy. Maybe there's a little quirk here and there about them, but you just like them. You just, oh man, you've got them, you know, and you're safe. You just love them. And so what I'm getting at is, I think we have to, as shooters, as defensive shooters, as carry permit holders, we want to know where that line is and be aware of it. Just be conscious of it, okay? Because we blur those two categories a lot, I think. We want so desperately, maybe I just love a 1911, which I do. I love those old guns, you know, all steel and by the history. And it's really tempting for me to just carry one, which I've done, and I do occasionally, you know, that Ed Brown. But separating what's the best gun to carry or best for defense from guns I like is something I try to do a lot of. And I know it leads a lot of people into decisions that they have to rethink later. You know, have to go back and clean up after. Yeah, I mean, we can't help it. We can't help it. Some of the guns that are really most practical to carry, that we shoot well, are kind of ugly. There's nothing that special about them when you look at them. Okay, let's use a Glock for an example. You know, me and my Glocks. What's really that pretty about a Glock 27 or a Glock 23, 19, Glock 26? You know, that black polymer and, you know, the slide. There's nothing. The only beauty in them is in their function, that they work so well. But when you look at them, yeah, they look like every other Glock, same size as every other Glock in that model out there. Millions of them out there, I guess. So nothing special as far as just intrinsically, you know, just the aesthetic attraction or beauty of them. You pick one up and yeah, okay, it's a Glock. So I think quite often we're attracted to something that is just a really cool gun. Maybe it's nickel plated. Maybe it's because it's stainless, or because General Patton carried one, or because Alvin York carried one, or whatever. We tend to like that firearm. I've got the little 65 Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum. I bobbed the hammer on it, 6 shots. Yeah, that gun, I'm extremely attracted to that gun. Of course, I'm not sure which category that would fall into. That actually might fall into the functional category, right? But if it weren't for the capacity of it. But you know, there's just guns I like, but in the sense that it does fall into the other category, the pretty category, or the category that I find attractive, is it's steel, it's a revolver. Oh man, cool! I love the trigger. I'm just going to carry that. But then reality, you know, hits me, and I think, well, 6 shots. Wow, you know, a Glock 26 or Glock 27, you know, holds a lot more ammo. It's still small. It actually thinner than that gun. And even if it's not as inviting, you know, there's no history. You take that Smith & Wesson, that's just like the Smith & Wessons made 100 years ago. Yeah, really? And so, you know, the history of that design and everything is just really cool. So I could be easily attracted to that. And of course, that is a very functional firearm too. But anyway, separating the two. And I do that. I mean, I actually do that pretty well, I think. One reason I do praise the little Glocks and guns like that and carry them, I mean, I have overcome that problem, so to speak, that I think a lot of us have. And we all have the potential, because there is just nothing cooler than a big old 1911 or a big old Smith & Wesson revolver, even a 4 or 5 inch one, maybe an end frame. You look at a end frame 357, a model 28 or model 27, if you're familiar with those are really cool guns. You know, you think, oh man, I want to get one of those and carry it, or just whatever it might be. Or it might just be a firearm you just happen to like for whatever reason, you know, whatever the history is. Doesn't mean it's the best carry gun or the best offensive gun. You know, separate the two categories as best you can, and enjoy it. One thing it leads to also, and I know people like this, experienced shooters, that carry a different gun every couple of days. You know, they kind of go through their collection because they like this gun and like that gun. And they want to carry it sometimes and all that. Well, you know, you get into issues there. If they have a different manual of operation, maybe some have thumb safeties, some don't, and that kind of thing. Which is why I don't carry a 1911 very much. I like it. That Ed Brown would be a nice carry gun, but it's that thumb safety that kind of pulls me away from it because I most of the time carry a Glock. Now, if I went to the Ed Brown, you know, 80 to 90% of the time, and I practiced with it, shot it a lot, and, you know, it just became like a 1911 used to be for me. It was just automatic because I used to compete so much with them. That thumb on the safety, it's just part of my DNA. But I've lost a lot of that, so I'm a little reluctant. But if you can keep those two different categories separate in your head and enjoy both, you know, maybe we should not like our carry gun that much. I mean, we should like it enough to shoot it. We should like it because it shoots well and we shoot it well and it's effective and reliable. We should like it for that reason. But maybe it's nothing we enjoy fondling and just admiring. Okay, maybe it should not be. It's a tool. It's like the hammer. If you're a carpenter, you work in construction, you know, that hammer just works, doesn't it? You know, so just something to think about there. Have those other firearms if you can afford them and enjoy them. It's like I do. Take them out to the range, thoroughly enjoy them. I pack a 1911 around the compound here and enjoy plinking at things, and a bunch of big revolvers, my Colt single actions, just anything. I like a lot of guns, as you well know, and I enjoy them all. But when it comes to get dressed for success, as they say, you know, the old Glock is what's probably going to go in the holster. So, or PM9 or something. And again, Glocks aren't the only one, as you know. SIG, you name it, M&P, XD, XDS, I've carried a lot, you know, just whatever. Again, they all fall in that same category. There's nothing that sexy or cool about them as guns you want to just admire, other than they work. And of course, that's admirable. So just a little tip, if you're kind of new into firearms, you're facing all these same inclinations, enjoy them all. Don't think every firearm you buy has to be a good carry gun. Or if it's not suitable for carry, why buy it? Heck, it might just be fun to shoot. You know, and that should be the biggest category of firearms. You want an old single action of some kind, or Ruger Vaquero, 1911, double action revolvers, big ones, whatever it might be, you know, have at it. Enjoy the heck out of them. They're fun. Doesn't mean you have to carry it. Doesn't mean it's the best carry gun for you. It might be for somebody. Yeah. But anyway, something to think about. And I better shut up, quit my ramblings, my brainless ramblings, and bid you adieu. I hope that you get a chance this week to fire some guns, maybe shop for some guns, look at some firearms, maybe look at some shooting videos. I just think some of you probably even have some homework to do, right? If you haven't watched all 800 plus videos that John and I have so laboriously put together. Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, I will chat with you guys again, and I appreciate y'all watching and listening, and I especially appreciate the fact you do not expect perfection, and that you at least enough of you don't mind videos or radio shows like this, where it's unedited for the most part, and not that slick, right? Just whatever comes to my mind to talk about. You can hopefully tell there's definitely no script. I just have some, I don't know, topics, 4 or 5 topics I'll have in my head that maybe I'll talk about a little bit, and then others pop up into my brain, and I'll ramble on that a little bit. So I know they would be a lot slicker. The videos would be a lot slicker if we did a lot of editing and put a great deal more thought into it, and maybe lots of different things. But I don't know, I'm not interested in that. That'd be too much like work, And if you want something really slick, you can find that. You can find all that stuff. So you are stuck with good old mediocre me. Well, you're not stuck. You don't have to watch. You don't even have to listen. But we appreciate that you do. And hope you have a great week. And there's something ballistically in your future there. Take care. Life is good. You've been listening to the Hickok45 radio show. See you on the range.